Alright guys, I'm making this video on the wood stove. There's some requests to see how I have this all hooked up. You can see that's the wood stove. There's a pile of wood. You open this up. Here's what it looks like in here. There's your firebox door. Water thermostat, temp gauge. Light switch to turn the light on, turns the fan off at the same time. Underneath here there's a fan. This is a forced air stove. As you can see, there's what she looks like, and the firebox is between 5 and 6 foot deep. Say 5 foot, it's not 6 foot. That's what it looks like in there. This stove, on the bottom there's a grate in the center with an auger that you clean it out, but then on each side it's just sand. You fill it up with sand on the bottom so your ashes and coals and everything aren't sitting on the steel. They're sitting on, well, they're sitting on the cast iron grate, or they're sitting on sand. Then it has an expansion bladder up here. It's just a rubber inner tube. And the door, you know, has a water jacket in it too. Then on the back side here, you can see it was kind of an afterthought to run the power to it. Should have been running the tubing with the water line, but that right there, you take that cover off, and I have this auger right there that you stick in there and you pull the ashes out, which I need to load up and haul out in a manure spreader whenever we can start hauling manure, but it's so muddy right now I don't want to haul manure. And as you can see, there's one pump for the house, one pump for the shop. Controls for your temp. There's another forced air fan right there that blows air into the firebox. You can burn wet wood. And right here you can see this is my water supply from the house to the shop. I have a T in here, and then I have this valve that runs up to here. Turn this quick valve on, and I can add water to my stove because it does lose water. It evaporates. This is not a pressurized system. It just has a little ball that sits on top. Right there is just a weighted ball with a long rod that's on it, and it will evaporate out around there. So I do have to add water. Usually once a year, sometimes twice. I just turn on quick until it bubbles out the top and then shut it off. But this is how I have this all set up. One goes to the house, one goes to the shop. It wouldn't be very hard to add on more if a guy ever wanted to. And I am going to have to take this apart. And what I'm probably just going to do, I don't know if I can unbolt these up here, but these here I'm going to have to cut my clamps back off. I need to pour a new cement pad underneath here. In the last 8 or 9 years, it's settled. The stove is starting to tip downhill. But, and then here's a drain. You know, when I got a garden hose on, you can drain the water out of it. But that's what it looks like in here. This cover here, you take that off. You got your firebox stops about here. Then in the front, there's a chimney comes up, and then this square chimney runs all the way to the back, and then it runs out the top. It's just another basically just more area for heat to exchange out to the water. So yeah, that's what that looks like. Nothing fancy, but it gets the job done. Now I'll show you guys what it looks like in the house. Alright guys, I'm in the house now. This is what it looks like in my utility room. As you can see, the water lines come out from underneath the house. I have a valve right here where I can close the two valves. I'll close the one valve that comes up to the heat exchanger, and then open the other cross valve in the H there, and then I can bypass the heat exchanger in here. Otherwise, have it this way, and right now it's running water up the heat exchanger, which is in that box we built. This furnace is a downdraft or downforce furnace, so it takes the cold air in from the top, sucks it down, and then blows it underneath the house. So the heat exchanger is on the top because heat rises, and it would not work right if you have that down below it, because the heat will rise out of there and it'll warm up your heat exchange box on the top from your LP, and it would constantly kick the fan on because of that. So we have it mounted up here, and that pump right there is a backup pump. As you can see right now, it's not plugged in, it's just hanging there. When I first put this together, I thought it was going to need this pump to work right, and it doesn't. So basically this pump right now is just a backup in case the pump in the stove were to fail that feeds the house. I could plug this one in and it will work. During the summer, a lot of times I just unplug the pumps out at the stove, and I can plug him in and he will circulate the water. So that's what it looks like in here. And as you can see, there's a wire that comes out the top there, comes over, and then it goes through the wall. And I have a thermostat right here. This thermostat is set. This thermostat here runs the LP part of it. Then I have a thermostat just like this back by the bedrooms that runs just the fan. The back one runs just the fan, and I can't remember exactly which wires I hooked it to in there, but when you turn it on, the back thermostat just runs the fan. This front one runs the fan, the exhaust, the control board for the LP and everything. So, and the way I have it set up, I have the LP set at like 60 degrees, and then I have the thermostat for just the fan for my wood stove heat. That one is set at 65 degrees, I want to say 65, 66, right in there. And I have those back by the bedrooms because I prefer to sleep when it's cooler, so I have that thermostat back there, and then this thermostat here is at this end, and it always reads warmer than it really is in here, and it is warmer at this end of the house than the other end of the house because of this. Even when the doors close here, heat escapes from here, so this end of the house is always warmer. So that's why I have the thermostat at the other end of the house and this thermostat. You know, when we first put it together, I actually had this thermostat at this end of the house hooked to just the fan. But the problem is, like I say, then the whole house was warm. This end of the house is still warmer, but you would have such a fluctuation at the other end of the house because this end of the house, the thermostat would read really warm. And then once it would cool down enough for it to kick on, it would probably drop, 3 degrees here. But let's say it takes half hour right now with the thermostats, the way they're hooked up now, it takes half hour for it to kick on. With this end of the house, it probably took an hour to kick on because it takes so much longer for this end of the house to cool down because of the heat. So you get such a fluctuation at the other end of the house in the temperature. I ended up switching the wires in the control board down there, so the other end of the house controls when the fan kicks on, and this one down here is just backup. So yeah, I have two thermostats with that, so the LP is basically backup. So that's what it looks like in the house. That is the heat exchanger in there, basically the same heat exchanger that's in the shop. It's basically the same. It is smaller. I want to say this one in here is 110 BTUs or 120. The one in the shop is 180, and those BTUs are if the water is 180 degrees, I believe. It might be 160, but I think it's 180. And as you can see, I have a little thermostat on there, and you can see that water right now is 150 degrees. And that is what it should be. I have the thermostat on the stove set at 150. So that basically is just a double check. So anyways, that's what it looks like in the house. That's how I have it hooked up in here. Like I say, I got that bypass in there. just because if I want to use the wood stove to heat the shop and not the house, if I want to, we have to use so much LP every year for the lease on the tank. So a lot of times in the spring and the fall, I'll run LP, and then I'll shut these valves so I'm heating the shop. Basically, but I want water to run all the way up in here because underneath the house I have my water line that runs through. And basically I get 10 gallons of hot water out of that 1-inch PEX from here down to the shop. So, and then obviously my lines are only buried 18 inches underneath the ground, so I run hot water through it just to keep them thawed out. But anyways, that's what it looks like in here. Alright guys, so now you've seen what it looks like in the house. This is what it looks like out in my shop. It comes in right there, and all my tubing for everything on this farm I have switched since I bought the place. Everything is run inside a 4 or a 6-inch drain pipe, the black corrugated drain pipe, not perforated, just drain pipe. That way if anything were to ever break, I can hook a new line to it and feed it through as I pull the old one out. But inside that 6-inch coming in here, you can see I have there's two lines that come out for my wood stove, and then you can see a third line here. This third line is the water supply from the house. It goes into my hot water heater, and then I have this water line that comes out here for filling the sprayer or whatever else. And then here you can see I have my water line that comes up. One goes obviously right there into the hot water heater and out. And then this one here, during the summer, if the stove isn't on, this is just cold water. But as you can see, I tapped into it here with a T. Then this 1/2-inch line and the shutoff valve, this line here goes out to my stock tanks, and it just trickle feeds all winter. And this water is how warm the stove water is, because it has about 350 feet of line that runs right next to my hot water line, so that water during the winter is hot coming out here, so that's what keeps my cattle waters thawed out. And you can see my hot water heater shut off right now. Some of you know, or if some of you watched some other videos, I explained that in the past I raise bottle calves, and this was my mixing station out here because the wife did not care for milk replacer and all that mess being in the house, so I built this out here. So basically this is where I mixed all my milk for my calves. You can see there's still some bottles and stuff out here and all that stuff, but so yeah, that's how this is all done. And then if you look on this side of the wall, this is where my hot water lines come in, and my phone line from the house also runs in that same 6-inch drain tube. These are my lines coming in from the stove, and they run up there to that heat exchanger, which just has a 20-inch fan on the back of it, 20-inch 3-speed fan, and I have it set on medium, I do believe. And in here, when it's running, I normally don't heat the shop at night. I used to, but as you can guess, my shop is pretty hard to heat. Those windows don't help. What I plan to do is get some 2x4s and make a frame basically where I can put pink styrofoam in there to close them off during the winter. I like them during the summer because they let a lot of light in here. But with the stove being tipped like that, heat radiates out the top of it, and it does keep it warmer in here than it is outside, I'll say that. Like right now, I'm not really heating the shop, and it stays around 45-50 degrees in here when we're down around in the 30s, upper 20s. So it does heat a little bit in here even without the fan being on. And my ceiling fans, I never shut them off. But anyways, so that's the heat exchanger, and that's just a regular fan. And over here is, you can see right now it's 50 degrees in here. Right now it's off, but no, she's blowing out heat. That's all it is. And during the winter, what I do, That's just the Fleet Farm special thermostat that can either be set for heating or cooling. And you can see it's plugged in right here. But what I normally do right here is a timer. During the winter months, I hook the fan up to the timer, and then I have it set so the heat will turn on at, like, say 6 o'clock in the morning. I come out, put the kids on the bus at 7:30ish. That way the fan has been running for an hour, hour and a half before I come out in the morning. That way the wood stove is normally on with the fans running, so it's burning. And then I can load that while I'm waiting for the bus. And then once the kids get on the bus and I come to the shop and the heat's been on in here for an hour, hour and a half, it's warming up in here. And then the skid loader, you know, I don't normally feed till closer to noon. That way the skid loader has time to warm up in here. You know, the shop is warm. The skid loader's ready to rock and roll then. And then I have the timer set so it'll shut off at like 10 o'clock at night or whatever time I decide to set it for. And I don't heat all night long. Like I say, the shop is kind of a bugger to heat. And a lot of you guys who follow me for a while know that I've talked about making the shop smaller and everything. I still don't know what I'm going to do. A part of me still wants to just move the wall over to where that 2x4 is and make it 26 foot wide and tear the stuff off the back and park the combine back there. Another part of me wants to just tear the wall down, redo my walls in here and make it go 45 feet again. And I don't know. I haven't decided what I'm going to do there yet. That's still to be decided. The biggest thing is I don't really do a lot of repair work anymore. When I first quit my job and stayed home to farm, I raised bottle calves. I had a couple beef cows, and I did a lot of repair work, working on tractors, welding, that kind of thing. And now anymore, I don't like working on everybody else's broken junk, so I don't do a lot of repair work other than my own anymore. So I don't know that I really need a big shop. So I'm still undecided whether I'm going to build this wall here and make the shop 30 by 26, or if I'm gonna take that wall down, which that wall right now is at 34 feet, give or take. I haven't decided if I'm gonna make the shop big or go small. Like I said, I don't know what to do. Chances are though, if I do decide to make the shop the original size again and take that wall down and redo my other walls, I'm gonna get an insulated curtain that I can put a track up there, and basically it'll run from right here, from this door straight across, and then be right on that side of the big door. And then I just heat this. The door is 17 foot wide, and then there's about 3 to 4 feet right there, so you're around 20-21 feet. Then just heat this part all the time, and then have the curtain I can open, and then have the back if I want to have a tractor in here to work on, or a skid loader, or manure spreader, or whatever. So I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. All I know is I need to do some work to the ceiling. There is like 12 inches of blown insulation up there, but really it needs another 6 to 10 inches to be what they recommend. But I don't like my ceiling in here. When we did that, we put 2x4s on top of the trusses and then run the steel between the trusses. I think I'm going to leave the steel up there, but I'm going to get an R13 which will fit in that pocket there between the steel and the bottom of the truss. And then I'm going to order some vapor barrier from Farm Tech and put bad insulation underneath with that vapor barrier, so then I'll have a white ceiling. And then I'm going to have the neighbor blow another 6 to 10 inches of insulation up above. I'd rather go overboard on the insulation than have to go overboard cutting firewood every year. And then I want to redo the walls. When I did it, I never really thought about mice, and I have mice in the wall so damn bad that they're ruining all my insulation. And like that wall towards the road isn't so bad because I have 2x4s running sideways. But the north wall on the back side here, that they've gotten in, and that I ran the insulation straight up and down. Well, the insulation is getting pushed down from them being on top of it. And about the top 4 feet of that back wall doesn't have insulation in it anymore. So my plan is to take that steel back off. I'm going to redo the insulation that way, but I'm going to use my nail gun here, and I have 3.5-inch nails to put in them. I'm going to put the insulation all the way to the top, and then put nails through so the nails will hold the insulation up. And then I need to mouse proof my walls so they can't get in it. But when I built the shed, I had never built a building before, so this is kind of my first experience in building anything. And now I know that in the corners of the walls, between your nailers, put boards in there so the mice can't get around, you know, to mouse proof it or whatever. So I need to redo that in here too, but I don't have enough money to monkey with that this year, so it's going to have to be what it is. What I might do though is tear that wall back down, and get that curtain for in here to put up along the door here, because I'm not going to be doing much work in the shop this winter, so I might as well only heat the small area. And I do want to do something with my door, and I really want an overhead door with an opener. So for right now I need to make it so I can get that sliding door open, which opens on the inside here. And if I put a curtain here, I can always pull the curtain back a little bit, open the door to get the skid in and out. But once I do redo the door, like I say, I really want an overhead door, but what might end up happening is go a sliding door on the outside, which would be fine too. But if I do something like that, what I might do is build, like what Bandit built, I might build a deck up there where I can have storage up on top and storage underneath. And then still have this width for working. I can have my welders and all that stuff along this wall and an area to work, but then I can pull this curtain closed and only heat a small area here. And talking back with the stove, I put the stove in because I have a lot of woods here that I'm trying to thin out for pasture. So I have the wood. Might as well burn it to heat the house and everything. And honestly, it takes a lot of wood in the winter to heat everything, but it's like you can never get far enough with the wood out in the woods to actually seem like it makes a big dent in expanding the pasture any. But it is getting there slowly, so that's kind of why I went with the outdoor wood stove. Looking back now, I almost wish I would have just put a wood stove in the shop and not done the water boiler. It's expensive. It takes a lot of wood, and I don't think it's that efficient. The nice part about it is you don't have all the smoke in the building. You don't have a flame in the building, so during the winter I can paint in here or whatever. I don't have to worry about the fumes really igniting because of a flame. You still have all your other things you have to worry about, like when the fan kicks on, if it has an arc, it could still ignite the fumes or whatever, but it's safer than having an actual wood burning stove in here. But I don't really paint in the wintertime, so, and actually I haven't painted anything in quite a while. The last tractor I painted was my 4030, which I can't show you guys because I sold it over a year ago. I bought the 6400 to replace the 4030, so but that's the wood stove. And looking back, or if anything ever were to happen to this stove, if it were to puke clunk out on me, I would not replace it. I would just put a wood stove in here, a regular wood burning stove, build a heavy duty chimney out of, you know, like an 8-inch or 6 or 8-inch Schedule 80 pipe. Something that, you know, everybody's worried about chimney fires. Well, a Schedule 80 pipe or Sched 80 pipe is heavier wall pipe than what the wood stove is built out of. I don't care, let it burn. It's gonna burn the crap out of it and go out anyways, so it never melt the pipe. But if that were to ever die, that's what I would do. And then I just build a heat exchanger on it and plumb it into the lines I already have to keep my lines thawed out, and to keep that line that comes into my shop from the house, the water line, just to keep that warm, because that is what thaws out or keeps my stock tanks from freezing. You know, and then just start the stove in the morning and let it go out at night, and moving water doesn't freeze, so I wouldn't really have to worry about my water lines freezing out there. So that's what I would do if that ever died, because that stove, I have about $10,000 invested into it, and that doesn't include paying for cutting firewood. So, but it is nice when it works. Hopefully it works for a very long time yet. But that's how I heat the shop. That's how I heat the house. And like I say, the house is forced air backup. And if the wood stove were to go out, that forced air on the inside, that will warm the water too. So if the stove were to ever clunk out, and as long as the pumps still circulate the water, it won't freeze. A, it won't freeze because the pumps are circulating the water. They move a lot of water. And B, that heat exchanger in the house will warm the water to a certain degree, so the water is not freezing cold. So that's kind of how that works. And in the winter when it gets really cold in here, this thing doesn't really heat my shop very well. And I do have the torpedo heater as a backup. If we get 30 below weather, that thing struggles to get up above freezing. So I will turn the torpedo heater on, and between the two of them, if it's 30 below, I can get up to 60 degrees in here pretty easily. And I do have another thermostat for him, you know, and then just an extension cord, so I can run him on the thermostat too. But the idea is hopefully in another year or two to get the shop done enough where it's easy to heat. I could heat it, you know, 24/7 and keep it 50 degrees in here, so I don't have to. In the morning, the fan has to run for an hour and a half solid to get it up to temperature in here, and then the skid loader still needs a couple hours to warm up. It's always nice coming out here. You can turn the key. It'd be 30 below outside, but you can come in here, turn the key on him. You don't need to preheat or nothing. He fires right up. Hydraulics are already warm, and go out and go to work. I don't miss the days of having to have it plugged in. Go out and fire it up, leave it run for 20 minutes, and then the hydraulics are still stiff from being thick and cold and all that screwing around. This is just fire the key, turn the key, let them run for 5-10 minutes to warm up, and then go. So yeah, that's my heating and how I have it set up and why I do it. Any questions, feel free to ask. So yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one. I'm going to add this to the end of this video too. As you can see, my two little cats have a warm place to sleep all winter long. They lay on that insulation and on top of those warm water pipes. So they have a warm place to sleep all winter long. They have a way to get in and out of the shop because of the pigs. And yeah, it's dirty in here. It's messy. All kinds of crap needs to be cleaned up. But the pigs dug a hole underneath my wall, so the cats have a way to get in and out of here. This is one of them projects that never got finished. Normally what I do is I have a heavy canvas tarp that I hang across here so heat doesn't go back that way. The walls are insulated on the front here. So basically I hang that tarp up here. Holds heat in here, it keeps my water lines thawed out. And like my hose here, this hose I always use for washing my bottles and stuff. Well, this hose is long enough I can go wash tractors out front. If I'm torching on stuff in the shop, I can drag that hose out there to cool off stuff I'm heating up or put out a fire if I start a fire or whatever. But like I say, I hang a tarp across the front here, so you can see there's a hole in the wall there. Before I run the water line this last winter, I always would stick a hose through the wall for watering the pigs during the summer or whatever, so this has never been finished. But it might actually get tore back off of here, and I might do it so it matches the cattle lean-to, and then I might make it so there's two garage doors here facing the house, and then I can park the gator and other stuff in here. But yeah, that's just a quick addition to this video of where my cats go all winter long. I could make it so they can't get in here, but really it doesn't bother me they come in here because they mouse in the shop too. So I'm not gonna repair that hole right now. These two little turds can come in here, and they sleep in here at night, and they hunt in here during the day, and they hunt out in the shed and stuff. So anyways guys, that's the heating system. So thanks for watching. Comment, rate, subscribe, stay tuned for more, and I'll catch you on the next one.